It's election 2010.
Hello, how are you? Boo.
And at the start of week 2 of the campaign, opposition leader Tony Abbott has been in Queensland promoting childcare policy, while Julia Gillard was in Tasmania with a focus on health.
And how are you going?
Not too bad.
Not too bad?
So what are we doing here? Are we having a tea party? Is that what we're doing?
For the next 4 weeks, the leaders will continue to travel around the country. Polls have the gap narrowing, but Labor is still in front. Economic issues like the cost of living are important topics in this campaign, but increasingly the subject of asylum seekers and immigration are starting to dominate. The opposition has now promised to cut Australia's immigration intake from 277,000 a year to 170,000.
We need an immigration program which can be supported for the long term by the Australian people. If we want to be a cohesive, prosperous society, we need strong popular support for the immigration program, and that's what this policy is designed to achieve.
The announcement was made over the weekend, just hours before the one televised debate of the campaign.
What we had was a big increase in immigration numbers under the current government.
Labor's position is not so different.
Let's have a look at immigration numbers. In 2008, 300,000, that's true. And then we brought the immigration numbers down as the economy obviously was dealing with the impact of the global financial crisis.
The Labor government, led by Prime Minister Julia Gillard, stamped out its territory on the issue a month ago when she took over from Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, immediately dumping his policy of a big Australia, plans to significantly increase Australia's population. It's not clear where this debate on population is going, but it is building up steam, even though it's unlikely to impact very much on Australia's real migrant intake. The intake is already falling, and a report by BIS Shrapnel projects the figure to drop further in coming years. And while this discussion's been going on, business groups, retailers and Australian universities are speaking out against the opposition's plan, saying that without immigration, the country will stagnate economically. One candidate is trying to corner the pro-immigration vote. He's Stephen Mayne, a former Liberal Party staffer and the founder of website crikey.com.
Well, I thought it was outrageous that the Prime Minister started the election campaign saying she's against a big Australia, and now we've got bipartisan support with the opposition wanting to slash immigration as well, and I just think it's ridiculous given we're one of the most sparsely populated countries in the world.
There's been concern in Australia about the growing number of asylum seekers. And there's another issue too, growing pains, felt in the outskirts of the major cities where suburbs are spreading, but infrastructure hasn't kept up.
I think that Australians have a ridiculous paranoia about refugees coming by boat, and clearly the polls are showing that there's some issues around congestion in Sydney, Melbourne and in southeast Queensland. And both sides of politics are doing a race to the bottom, appealing to the lowest common denominator and trying to win an election with extraordinarily cynical tactics that will do a lot of long-term damage.
Political scientist Professor John Warhurst says he didn't expect this issue to develop this way.
It seems that it is a big issue out there in the community, in a way perhaps that some of us overlook debating the big issues from Canberra or from the capital cities. It seems to be an issue which resonates in marginal seats and in rural and regional Australia in a way that perhaps has taken some of us by surprise.
Today the politicians were still talking about it.
As things stand, largely thanks to the dereliction of state Labor governments, we don't have the kind of infrastructure that we need to support our existing population.
What I am saying for our future is we need a sustainable Australia, not a big Australia. That requires us to think about, to work through policies about everything that protects our Australian way of life.
The election debate covered the usual topics of employment, health, education and global warming. The performances were rated by studio audiences who gave victory to the Prime Minister, while many newspapers awarded it to the opposition leader. Julia Gillard says that her eye is on the future.
That's why when the global financial crisis threatened this country, we did what we needed to do to protect Australian jobs. Now that was the better economic plan. And for the future, we have the Better Economic Plan, a plan to bring the budget back to surplus in 2013.
Tony Abbott says the government has overspent.
Right now, our future is at risk for a government which is all clever politics but absolutely hopeless at running the country. They're wasting billions on pink bats and overpriced school halls. They're borrowing $100 million every single day, and they're threatening our economic future with their great big new tax on mining.
Both were steady and polished in their performances, but neither of them were exciting or passionate.
Two very disciplined performances and two very dull performances. I think both of them are more interesting characters than they've allowed themselves to show to the electorate so far. And I think if the minders and the advisers have their way over the next 4 weeks, you'll see that two very professional politicians probably won't put too many steps out of line, but they'll bore the electorate silly. And it might be that the outcome will be not much change from the 2007 result.
But with the gap narrowing, anything could happen.